with his 4 out of 4 like he did yesterday, because there was a time when he was so impressive at the beginning that we did think, hey, this guy's going to break the 3,000 mark.
I know, he was that close. And knight f3, and
we have a Reti.
We have a Reti, yes.
Will we be seeing a London, which has been popular?
Yeah, no, this is mine. This is what.
This is your specialty, the bishop g4 line.
Bishop g4 line. I do quite like it.
So you had a wonderful victory over a grandmaster from Romania, Michael Marin. That was very, very nicely done. Yeah,
it's a little trap though. It had a quite funny story to it because I played this line in a rapid play game in a tournament somewhere, and I'd lost very badly, and then I went and checked on the computer, and the computer suddenly goes, no.
You were doing well.
You were doing well had I played this bishop before, and so I was absolutely shocked when my grandmaster played it, and I was like, okay, thank you.
There's some very interesting ideas in this line with queen e1, knight h4 to cage that bishop on h5, and then g4, f4. I've seen a game of Kramnik against Adiban in the Olympiad.
Right.
He completely crushed him. I did prepare that line for one of my games as well, so I know a little bit. But Fabiano is essaying a completely different plan with rook e1, supporting e4 again. Queen e2, queen f1 could potentially be a maneuver to get rid of that pin, and he's just going to try for an expansion on the king side. Perhaps e5, close the center, and then try for an attack on the king side.
Well, I always like the defensive power of the bishop on h5. Magnus's king will find real safety when that bishop drops back to g6, even with the absence of the knight on f6, I mean.
Yeah, it was quite very interesting for me as well. He's chosen to play c5 and knight c6.
Very aggressive setup.
Very aggressive setup. Normally it's more typical to see c6 and knight d7,
and
more
solid. Solid.
Yes.
He's bracing for white's attack on the king side, and he's preparing his own expansion on the queen side. That's why he wants to have the pawn on c5, knight on c6, b5, b4, c4 is going to come, and he's just going to try to create his own counterplay on the other side.
But guys, this is almost, what, a 30-40 second think there for Magnus?
Because he took on e4, that's a big decision.
A huge decision, and a quick recapture, d takes e4. Now, I've always liked these positions for white after the trade of d-pawn. The reason is the flexibility of the knight on d2. I often follow it up with the idea of c2, c3, and try to make claim to the c4 square, with or without a2, a4. And this open d file, the strange part is, it's whoever ends up holding the d file, it often reverses. The other player ends up with the d file. So initially it could be that black plays queen d7, rook b8, but then white somehow manages to bring the rook on a1.
It's a very interesting, like you mentioned, you play c3, to c2, c3, and often I find as black, that's kind of, if it's going to be a race, like king side versus queen side, then playing c3 often gives black a little something to aim for, like putting a knight in d3. It's very...
If you get that wonderful maneuver, knight f6 to d7 to c5 to d3, then you're looking sporting, but... It's a long way.
It is a long way, yes.
The other reason that I'm not a big fan of this trade by Magnus is that white can now use the e4, e5, and sometimes the knight slips behind the pawn. It's like in a jet stream, you know, it goes knight e4, you get the g4 and the bishop.
So I go knight d7?
Knight e7.
Knight d7.
Knight d7, pardon me, yes. Of course.
Force you to play g4, I would assume.
Right. Knight d7, g4, bishop drops back to g6, c3, and again, and we have...
Well, actually, knight d7, knight c4 perhaps is a little bit more
knight c4,
poignant.
b5.
b5. We can...
knight d6.
Knight d6.
And is e5
knight takes
hanging?
e5, knight takes b5, queen takes d1, and then knight on f3 is hanging, so yes.
Sorry, do that line again. Knight c4,
knight c4 b5, knight d6, knight takes e5, knight d takes e5, knight takes b5, queen takes d1,
and f3 is
and then the f3 is hanging. Yes.
Right, that's why it's likely that white is going to have to throw in g4. Okay, but g4, bishop g6, and the bishop, by the way, is beautifully placed on g6. Again, fantastic defensive piece, and it's eyeballing that c2 pawn. So g4, bishop back, c2, c3, queen c7, queen e2, and it's going to be a little trench warfare going on as the fight for
but
squares.
Somehow this knight on d2, it's not that... knight c4.
He's gone for this tactical line.
I think it's the only thing you can do, to be honest.
Yeah, if you were going to go c3, it's a bit... Black has very nice development.
Yeah, but again, it's this fight for these central squares, and for the moment, e5 pawn is cramping influence. Okay, besides this move b5, which may actually be quite good, there's also simple chess, knight b6. Because again, this any queen trades was going to leave this pawn on c2 vulnerable.
What about queen c7? Just okay.
Knight b4.
Knight b4.
Knight b4.
Now knight
a third choice.
Third choice, yeah.
Knight e3 is probably, or rook e. No, rook e2 doesn't seems a bit loose. I think rook e2, knight takes e5 might actually be winning.
Yes.
Knight takes e5, queen takes d8, knight takes f3.
So knight e3.
Zwischenzug, very important Zwischenzug. Yes, I'm warming up very much to this knight b4 shot. This is awkward. You have to play knight e3, and now knight b6. And this bishop on g6 is suddenly really, the influence of that bishop is really very powerful.
White is just getting outplayed.
And now, two big issues. Again, the c2 pawn, knight takes e3, knight c2, forking White's rooks on the agenda. In addition, knight f4.
Yeah.
And you don't want to lose this g2 bishop in an open game. Rook d1 addresses both threats because after knight f4, White will drop back with his queen and with a tempo against the queen on d8.
Queen will move.
But still, knight
f4, queen c4.
Thank you. That clears the cobwebs, because otherwise I would move my queen. But now after knight f4, queen c4, Christian, your move puts the knight on f4 on pre. Okay, we need a good move for Magnus now. Queen c7, just getting out of the
Just queen c7, get out of the way, and I'm
very attractive move. Okay, so let's do it. Queen c7, knight d5. If you recapture with the pawn to maintain the threat against c2, I have knight e1.
Yes.
And that could turn the table suddenly, because...
Yeah. Well, queen c7 played.
We have seen in queen c7, knight d5 looks box.
Knight takes d5. Yeah, I would... Knight...
Which has happened.
Knight takes
very
d5,
quickly.
and then I like the... And then it's going to... my plan would be to double on the d line.
Right. A good plan.
A good plan.
Again, this move... I'm thinking about c3, but now I'm also attracted to c4.
c4, knight d4. I don't like giving that d4 square for knight. And then if you go bishop d3, I can still chase it with bishop e4.
Do it again. c4 for white?
Oh, c4 for white. I thought you meant c3, c4 for black.
No.
Yeah. a3. Okay, so he's still keeping c4 in reserve, but I was still curious. c4, knight b4, bishop f4, rook d8. c4 for black.
Yeah.
As expected.
But if you give c4, then I can... If White plays c4, then I think it's key to go knight b4, and then knight c6, and then I have a nice square
on d4.
On d4.
True that. Yes, indeed. So a3, but c4 by Magnus to prevent White playing c4, and the knight's permanently located on d5. Big choice there. Knight d4.
Yeah,
Not a big fan of this move. I was thinking more like h3, h4 in that particular moment, because now after rook d8, I find black's play to be quite easy. Like you say, double on the d file.
Double on the d line, yeah.
And if you provoke White to play c3, ooh, that's a surprising. I was going to say if White is provoked into c3, bishop d3 is nice, but c3 by Magnus, b4. Oh, by the way, we have a big development going on in the rival of our tournament leader, Magnus, who just seems to have played
seconds.
Rook. Yeah, it just seemed to... Things have gone south here for White, as Fabiano is staring down a pawn on d2. Oh, Magnus playing powerful chess. Knight e3.
Wait.
Queen. Don't make the illegal move. And g4 is hanging with a check. The king has to come up. But for the moment, a lot of pieces are hanging. There's a knight on g4 or rook on d1.
The rook is hanging on d1.
Did he miss the fact that king h3 attacks the knight also? Rook d4.
And g6.
That's a nice move.
It is.
You can lock out the bishop, but
Only
for one move.
Yeah, it may just be a temporary,
G5,
and it is g5.
Isn't this better for white? With two bishops, the king very safe on h3. That's
well,
the jury's out. As the players, I haven't seen the times, the clock.
Well, it says at the bottom, so it's
13 seconds for Magnus. 11, 10. 11 seconds. Uh-oh, we've just seen a bad move.
We've just seen the black bar.
Yes. Oh, but time. Oh, Magnus walking into it. Huge tactical shot. He's just lost everything.
It's good
Literally,
news,
the
good
house.
news from Nakamura, I think.
The house collapsed. And there we have...
Bad start for both our leaders.
Whoa. Opening the door for Alex Grishuk. Wow. We'll have to just see what's going on in that game. And there we saw Wesley So and Sergei Karyak.
Okay.
We'll just see the end of the Wesley So game.
We have to...
And there was a handshake.
There was a handshake? What happened?
But boy, let us just take a look at that Magnus Carlsen position, because things were getting crazy just at the end. Rook f7, queen c8, queen f3.
Now this is a mistake.
And then something atrocious happened. It went bishop g6. So bishop e4 looks like a very good move for Magnus at this moment. Played bishop g6, rook d7, knight e5, and this is where you get the geometry of the bishop on g3 that was lurking, and boy did... there was a pounce.
There was something happening.
I think queen e3 should be much more precise, because you're attacking the knight on e5 and the rook on d4 with the queen.
No. There's a blow.
But here there's a g4 check that has to be taken into account. Queen f2, queen d8, and I wanted to say just the geometry of the pieces. Wow. Well, let's go to Paris.
Let's go to Paris, where Maurice has an interview with Fabiano,
Well, so much for all the predictions. This round saw 5 decisive games. Just an incredible start to the day, the final day, and it looks like everybody is coming to win. And one, Fabiano Caruana, who had a really bad first rapids phase, but now you're playing blitz now. Like, you're fresh, you're ready, and just running at a scintillating trot. This game, though, was not even. This was weird. This was up and down. What made you be able to keep your nerves in this one?
I had no idea what was going on. I missed knight takes e5. I mean, it got so complicated so quickly. I wasn't sure if I was winning or losing. I missed knight e5, and then I played queen f2 because I realized that g4 is a threat. And then I suddenly realized after knight e5 that I had rook takes g7. And then it was probably good I didn't play, because then he actually picks up e6 in the end and probably wins my bishop on d4. And so it's probably good I saw it too late. Because then queen f2 and then rook g7 next is crushing. And probably queen f2 is winning, but at least I didn't see anything for him. Maybe he has something, but I didn't see it.
Well, the time situation was just crazy. I mean, at the end, you guys were just blitzing so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we both had we were playing on increment, not on increment, on the delay, and it was. I mean, we had to navigate this position with seconds is impossible. So I'm sure we both made some serious blunders.
Now we know you're not going to win the tournament because of your poor start at the beginning, but you're definitely playing for more than just pride here.
I mean, after the first 2 days of Rapid, I basically gave up any hope of anything. Even after the first day, it was already pretty clear that I had already ruined my chances of hoping for first. But at least I can have an influence on who wins, which is always a nice feeling, and I can at least show that I mean, in any case, playing good chess is a reward in itself. So I don't really care if I screwed up everything at the start, as long as I can play not even good chess, but at least just a decent result. Just at least win a few games, and I seem to be doing that, so I'm happy with that.
Doing more than that and absolutely knocking off the leader, playing spoiler. Good luck in the rest of your games.
Thank you.
Fabiano Caruana showing that, hey, he might have had a shaky start, but watch out. He is indeed one of the best players on this planet.
Thank you, Christian, and thank you, Maurice.
Yes.
Christian, take us through that very final dramatic moments where the blunders came, just as Fabi mentioned, with seconds on the clock.
We were looking at the game from the outside. We were actually trying all sorts of variations, and the engine was going up and down, up and down. Imagine doing that with like 2 seconds on the clock and all the pressure on your shoulders. That's impossible. Let's look at the replay first, and then I will show you this.
This is where Rook G7 is soon set up, and this was the big mistake right here.
Well, try to find the winning move, yes.
Queen C3, I thought.
Very good.
Yes.
Yeah, to pin the bishop. Always believe in absolute pins, not the relative ones. But again, that was slow-mo, slow motion.
There you go. And
that
this is
boom.
this is the moments that in the previous move it was possible for him to go rook takes G, and he just saw it just as.
And that was it. Christian, take us through that.
Yes, and after Queen C3, as we mentioned, Queen F2, Queen C3, black would have been won. But instead of Queen F2, we were trying to figure out how is white winning in this position. Well, guess what? I'm simply going to give my queen, bishop takes C5, G4, queen takes G4, rook takes G4, rook takes G7. Now, if you go on H8, I'm going to go discovery check rook C7, and that's just game over. King F8, E7, King E8, rook G8, king D7, rook takes C8, and this is just game over because the rook is falling if you take this rook. So this is a very, very difficult variation to find with 10 seconds on the clock.
Exactly.
So Fabiano played practical chess and finally won. Let's go to Paris with Maurice.